it's about 7:47 according to my watch, and I know that if CWT is coming at 9 o'clock, then there are some of us who want to work operate in CWT. And
I shot my watt already. I'm not going to do it at 9 o'clock because I don't think I can beat what I did at 1900.
Jim, it's tough looking way up at the top of the mountain at that fella up there jumping around, isn't it?
Now, up above you on the right-hand corner is a fella that got, what you have, Gary, 160, 156 or something like that?
What's that?
Your CWT score was 160 or 156 or something like that?
Well, I don't usually post them, but I think I made 27,000 on them this morning.
Good gracious.
That was in the warm-up session.
You would go straight to the top of our list because right now Lee is ahead with 23,409. He had 153. And Ed Gilliland is right behind him with one. He had 160, but he didn't have as many mults.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what Ron told me. He said, since you were not having to submit the scores to anybody where there's a robot checking the accuracy or authenticity of your scores, you just see what score you want it to be and put it in.
Yeah.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, considering there's several hundred people operating in CWTs, there's probably a small percentage that do that.
Okay. Well,
I'll tell you the guy that keeps amazing me, and I haven't figured him out yet, is AA4LS. Have you looked at his scores?
No.
No, I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but that guy is amazing. He made almost 200 contacts this morning in low power.
In low power. I tell you, what that tells me is that he's got a heck of an antenna system.
Well, he's got a heck of a signal over here. I know that.
Maybe he has multiple antenna systems in multiple locations.
Yeah, this morning he had 198 with 168 mults for 33,264. That's just crazy.
This is AA4LS. He's 13 years old.
Yeah, he's a little older than that now. That's what his website says, but I think he's like 17 now.
Oh, there's one at 36,000. Let's see. That was last week in the morning. He had 202.
No, let me
I don't even know who that is.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, I went after him one time to try to see if he wanted to be one of our youth members, and I think I had talked with Mason about that because Mason kind of knows him some way or another. Anyway, he had already been approached by somebody else and was going to do something with some other club. I said, that's fine.
He's usually on a team with that Southeast contest.
Yes. Yeah, with John, K4BAI and that bunch.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good group of folks. I think Bryant jumps in there with them a lot of times too.
Well, I have a question, and that is, Gary, can you explain in such a way that I might understand it? Just how do you do what you do? It just amazes me. Are you SO2R or is that just single radio or what?
No, that's two radios, but I make very few contact with that second radio. I have hearing problems, and I've got a station in both ears. I can't listen to one station. I can't listen to two stations with one in each ear. I can't do it. So it's just, just generating the contacts, I guess. You got to sit there and call CQ.
Yeah. I did that totally this morning until about 10 minutes till, and then nobody was answering, and I needed to pick up the mults that I hadn't, that were that were calling while I was calling. So that's the only reason I got over 10,000 or over 100 was because I stopped, CQing. But you're right. That's the key. So I guess what you're telling me is there's no secret juice or secret sauce. You just butt in the chair and solid work for a full hour.
Yeah, I'd say that. Probably, I would say about 1 out of every 10 contacts I make is on the second radio.
Okay. That's still pretty good.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it makes a difference, doesn't it? It's, in an hour, 150 contacts, it's 15 more contacts.
I've got my radio set up where I can hear, the second radio or the primary in the left and the second radio in the right. But I never, in fact, the only time I'll ever turn it to that is I'll turn the sub radio audio on, and then I'll make sure they're both on the same freak, and I'll hit the tracking, which allows you to tune both radios at the same time, and it just gives me a little better diversity in my ears. It's not true diversity here, although they are separate radios. One's the TS990, the other one's a TS590 SG engine, but it does help hear a little better sometimes when it's noisy. Got a different input in your ears, but they have to be the same. If they were different, I think it would drive me crazy.
Let's see. And Mac, you represent the best I believe here. I believe you are the only non-flex user in this conversation. So you're bound to only 2 receivers, aren't you? You can't have 4 like some of the rest of us.
Oh, I can't have 4. I represent the old school ham radio operator. I've been doing this for 50, 60 years.
Now,
and those that know that is absolutely not true.
Now, Ron, you have so many towers and antennas and radios and things up there, but I noticed that your audio is muted. But you can do SO2R up there if you had the mind. Well, you do it on Ready, don't you?
Yeah, I'm SO2R on Ready and some on sideband, but I don't know CW, so that kind of rules that out.
Well, now I want to say one thing. I know we want to kind of rehash something here a little bit. We'll get to that. When I had several interruptions this past weekend, and I'm thankful that I got to operate 8 hours. But when I got on there and I looked on that real-time logging thing, there's nothing I could do. Not one thing when I was operating on 15, 20, and then when I started on 40 meters, could even get close to AA5W. And I wondered, what in the Sam Hill is he doing?
He was kicking butt is what he was doing.
I was doing great on 20 meters, but then I decided to switch. I thought, okay, I'll go try 40 for a while, and I did all right. But things for me slowed down considerably on 80. It just stopped. And I probably should have gone back to 40 or something. I don't know. And then I made the mistake of not going to 15. I went to 15, but by the time I got there, it was too late, I think.
Yeah.
But 20 was really good for me.
Well, let's see. Gary, you made some 10-meter contacts, did you?
No, I made 0 10-meter contacts. I didn't even look at the band. But I was about to say that 160 meters was really better than 80 was.
Wow.
There was a lot of contacts.
If you don't have a 160-meter antenna, you need to try to get one up. The thing about 160 meters, all except for maybe that super 1% has a super duper antenna on 160. Everybody else is like nobody, They're just have a piece of wire.
Oh, wow.
So it's a level playing field,
Yeah. Well, I know K3DMG, Lee, who's not a Deep Dixie member, but he's very valuable. And he was in Pennsylvania. And he's going to Aruba. I mean, maybe there already, but he's going to be P4/K3DMG. He put up a 160 meter antenna, and y'all probably read what he said. He tried to configure his antennas and stuff to be the ones that he would take to Aruba with him. So he had a 160 meter sloper, I mean, he said it was an inverted L, but it sounds more like a sloper because one end of it was 30 feet up in the tree and the other end was about 20 feet on the corner of his house. So it wasn't anything to write home about, but it's really fun to get those scores. Well, so, and Mac and Jim, jump in here. We've talked about this a little bit. What are some rehashes that y'all want to talk about? Anybody want to talk about from this past weekend?
I asked Gary, my main question is that, is there a real secret to making 90 contacts or 120 contacts or 200 contacts? And basically he confirmed what I think I already knew, is that it's just operating very efficiently and button chair and focus.
Well, Gary, I know you have pileups. I've listened to them. So how do you handle pileups?
Well, it can be hard, but hopefully in every pileup, there's going to be somebody that's smart enough to have his XIT set where he's maybe 50 hertz off the middle. And that's the guy I'm going to hear. And that's the way it is with everybody. I don't care who you are, but because some of these guys, I mean, I'm probably just as guilty as anybody in exact zero beat with everybody else is calling. And if you got 2 or 3 guys that are exact zero beat and almost the same signal strength, you're never going to pick that call out.
No,
you might get one letter, if you got, you might get one or 2 letters, especially if you got a 1x2, 2x1, and then you got a 1x3 guy calling. You can get that 1x3 guy. You can pick out his last letter, But other than that, I mean, you got the best of the guys that are doing search and pounce are usually offset by like 50 hertz or so.
Yeah. That was one advantage when I had my WB5 EIN call. It was so long that it would go on after everybody else had finished.
Well, that's like Bryant. I always know when it's Bryant. I can pick him out of any kind of pileup, and he's not always the strongest because he's using a bunch of wires. But his call is so long with all those dots and everything. I mean, I know I can hear all those dots.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gary, what is your antenna set up there? What do you have for antennas?
Antennas? Okay, let's see. Starting with 10 meters, I've got 6 elements at about 85 feet. And then below that's 15 meters. It's 6 elements on a 48-foot boom. It's about 75 feet. On that same tower, I've got an 80 and 40 meter dipole. On the middle tower over here, I've got a 70-foot tower. It's got an old KLM KT34XA. It's a 6-element tri-bander, and I've got and I shunt feed that tower also for 80 meters, but I have inverted L hanging off of that thing for 160. That works really well. It goes up 70 feet and then out 60 feet or 65 feet, whatever it is. And the last tower is a 100-foot tower. I've got 5/5 on 20. The top one is 112 feet, and the bottom one's at 60 feet. And I got a 4-element 40 at 100 feet. And I got an 80-meter dipole up there that's 100 feet.
Wow.
How do you turn? I guess they turn quickly, or do you get a lot of off, angle reception anyway?
Oh, well, I have it set up so I can switch to the tri-bander. That's where the tri-bander comes in important. Usually, like if I'm operating CWT or even NAQP, probably 90% of my contacts are going to be to the northeast. So I got the big antennas to the northeast, and I got the tri-bander over to the west. And if I hear a faint signal, I just reach up and throw the switch to the tri-bander, and it.
So you're not turning your antennas at all; they're set.
Yeah, I try not to, man. I mean, that'd be so much wear and tear on those rotors,
Oh yeah.
So it's much easier to switch them.
That's interesting.
And we're gonna go way back, but I guess when I lived in Starkville, Mac, down on South Montgomery Street, and I had those 2 towers, and one was 120 feet and one was 90 feet, I think. So at the 120 feet, I had a TH6 DXX, and then on the the 90-foot tower was really the monster. It was a high gain 204BA that I bought from the world's greatest ham radio operator, who at that time lived in Gonzales, Louisiana, Gary Van Winkle. And it was so much fun. Early in the morning, especially, I remember you could turn that tribander short path, and that 204BA. It was let's see, was it 4 elements on 3 elements on 20 and 2 on 40?
No, it's, that 204BA is a 4 element on 20.
Yeah. So I'd turn it long path, and there was one guy who lived in Artesia, Mississippi. His name was Arch White, W5 Delta Echo, I think was his call. And he thought he was the king of the hill. And actually, I think it was Madagascar one morning. Of course, this is back when we had so much sunspot activity, it blinds you when you walk outside. And and I worked that Madagascar long path, and Arch was calling, couldn't. But anyway, that was great though, and so I like it when you have a setup like Gary's where you can have the antenna set in 2 different directions.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and honestly, there's not a huge difference between the stacked 5/5 and that KT34. I mean, it's you might see a couple of S units at the best. Depending on where you're, depending on distance and everything, of course. But like stateside here for a low domestic contest, a KT34 is probably just as good as anything.
So Gary, which frequency did you or band did you start off on during the? Or did you? I guess you were SO2R. You might have.
Yeah, well, I started CQing on 20, but I was running up and down the band on 15, trying to pick them up. I threw out a few CQs on 15, but I couldn't get any no bites. So and there was nothing there but Californians, and for me, I guess 15 was. It had that window effect, they call it. I know some guys in Texas were hearing people I couldn't hear, and so on and so forth, But for me, I think I had 30 contacts on 15, so it just wasn't very good.
Did anybody else get any contacts on 15?
I think I had 9.
I didn't hear anybody, but I think I waited too long. Ron, did you get any?
17, I think. But I broke a gear set in my rotor, so I couldn't get to California 6 and 7 land where everything was coming from. So I worked some of them off the side, but that was about it.
Lord, I don't even remember. I made some on 15, but I'll have to look at 3830 to find out what it was.
Now, Larry, your antenna that you're running is a horizontal loop?
Yes. It is a pseudo horizontal loop. It is a wire that's in one of the pine trees. It's probably about 40 feet up, and it goes across to a gum tree where it's about 35 feet up, and another gum tree that's about 35, and then the northwest tree is where we put it when we hung it from the drone. One of the limbs broke, and so that one is about 20 feet off the ground.
But it seems to be working.
Well, it was one time I was going to adjust it and move around. I thought, no, I'm leaving this dang thing alone.
I was wanting you to add about 100 feet to it so you can make it a full wave on 160.
Well, that would have worked out, except for the fact that my neighbors didn't like it when I would try to run the lines across the street and through their trees. Okay, on 15 meters, I made 56 QSOs and 15 multipliers.
Wow.
That's all.
I made 36.
Well, I stayed up there a long time. And
so when did you start working them on 15, Larry?
Oh.
Was that early on?
Lord, no, I don't even remember. And in my radio that I use that has M1MM on it is out in the garage, so
yeah.
I don't know. No, I didn't. It was so off and on, man. I didn't. for a while I thought I was just going to have to drop out completely, and then fortunately was able just to get back in there when see where I live is wonderful because we have several elderly people, several widows, and several elderly divorcees around here. And then across the street is this medical doctor who's magnificent. It's wonderful. She's the one that had the big tree blow down in her yard and knocked the corner of her house off. And I was helping put fascia, not in this storm, but in one before. So,
anyway. Well, our friend Marco out in California had a few on 15, 281. But he only had 2 on 10.
Larry, you made 45 at 1800 and 11 in the 1900 hour on 15 meters.
I'm gonna have to hire Ron to be my agent. I don't really.
Looking at the reverse beacon.
No, the online scoreboard.
Oh,
it okay. Shows what everybody did, what band, when, and where.
Oh. Wow.
I went. Go ahead, Larry.
No, that's interesting. There may be some people who use that, and we need to do some screen sharing.
Well, it'll let you compare your call with anybody else's call, so you can see exactly what you did, your rates on what bands, when, and where, compared with anybody else on there.
Well, now I will have to say that no matter how hard I try, I can't compare my scores with K5KU.
Oh, that you?
Sure. Anybody can share.
Yeah, that's right. And Jim said this is true. We're thinking about what would it be fun sometime during a CWT if several of us get on and share our screens. And of course, I'd be so mesmerized I wouldn't make any contacts. I'd be watching y'all make your contacts. But that'd be fun if you even so it's not a distraction. If you just share your screen, and it doesn't have to be CWT. It can be any contest, I guess. Well, anyway, okay, I'll quit sharing that. Y'all don't care about that mess. Pause the share. I want to stop the share. Oh, there it is, red button.
So, Mac, what antennas were you using when you were making contacts?
My primary antenna for the whole thing, well, I take that back. It was mostly my G5RV dipole.
Okay.
When I was on 40 meters, I get almost a perfect match. Just a 1 to 1.02 or something like that a lot of times. So mostly that's what I was using. But when I went to 80 and 160, I was using a 160 meter loop.
So do you use that as a receive antenna as well sometimes? It's a horizontal loop?
No, it's a horizontal loop, and it goes from right outside my window here. I've got a mast goes up 50 feet, and it goes over to the property line, down about 50 feet, back to the house, and then come across the house, and that works out to about 520 feet thereabouts. But the type of wire that I'm using is insulated 14 gauge, so that affects the impedance.
Larry, click on your call sign on there.
Yeah. Okay, man, I messed that up. Let me come back over here.
And you have a vertical as well, don't you?
I have a vertical, but I rarely ever use it.
Oh.
No. In fact, it was money that was not well spent. And the main reason might be that I've got it. It's only about maybe 10 or 15 feet from the house. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be too close to the house for it to really be really good. I mean, the signals that I get on it are sometimes comparable to the dipole or even the loop. But why use it? the only reason that I keep it up right now is because I can use it for 6 meters.
How far away is your G5 RV from your house?
Probably 40 feet. I don't know whether you can see it on it's on the same pole that my flag is on. So my flagpole goes up, and I seated that in Quickcrete, so it's really solid. And then I attached the mast for my G5 RV with hose clamps. 3 stainless steel hose clamps hold that mast to the flagpole, and it goes up I think 36 feet or thereabouts, maybe 40 feet to the center board. And then, but the biggest change I made to that dipole it changed it, it improved it 100%, was when I changed it from a sloper to a flat top. Mm. And so the dipole center is about 38 feet, 40 feet, somewhere around there. And it goes up to about 50 or 55 feet in one tree. And then it goes over to the top of a mast that's 50 feet. And it's down maybe 3 or 4 feet. So it's roughly about 48 feet on one side, 50 or 55 feet on the other, and about 36 or 40 in the middle. And when I started, the very next CWT that I did, my rate and number jumped significantly. I mean, I could hear so much better. But still, I don't hear like other people do. I think I'm limited to what I can hear. There's a lot of noise with wires, Yeah.
I heard a lot of noise on 80 meters. It was pretty clean on 160, although it's kind of low. And then, 80 is the one that gave me trouble. I tried a couple of different antennas, but.
Well, a high dipole is going to be better than a vertical almost any time. I've got this 80 meter vertical I have, that shunt fed tower. It's 70 foot tower. So it's more than 65 feet. And it's almost never as good as that high dipole to any place.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a real dipole, or is it it's not inverted V, but it's a real dipole?
It's an inverted V. I can't get the ends up. I wish if I could get the ends up, I sure would do that. But I got one end up that's probably up about, it probably drops to about 90 feet or so, but the other end drops down to about 75 feet.
Yeah, but for all practical purposes, that's still almost dipole. It's not really.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to come down to like 35, 40 feet to be inverted V, but I guess depending on the distance of your tower.
Yeah, but it still is almost like it's almost always better than that a shunt fed tower.
My two wavebands were 40 and 80. I had 218 on 40 and 236 on 80. I think that's what it was. Yeah, and 87 on 160.
Yeah, let's see what. Oh, look. Okay, so can you see? Is this showing? My screen showing?
Yeah, you can click breakdown if you want to see what I'm looking at.
Oh, this is interesting. This is comparing K4AFE and WV4P, and this is on 80 meters. So green is MAC, and whatever
I'm not seeing that.
I'm not seeing it either.
Oh, well, shoot.
We're looking at a different screen.
Wait a minute. Hold on to your hat, Poncho. Hold on to your hat. Oh, yeah, Ron. Oh, mercy. Oh, yeah. Now this is that thing that you're talking about comparing. This is really interesting. I've never done this before. So this shows QSOs, and this shows multipliers, and then can be a third one. So this is how you found that information a while ago. It's really interesting. Now, with the two of y'all both being in Tennessee, assuming that you did operate the full time, it would be interesting. Let's see what it is on all the bands.
You can definitely see where I spotted them.
Yeah, well, that's right. That is a fact. That is a fact. Well, I know that there's some who don't like, um, let's look at 15 minutes, who don't like having scores shown, but for a peon like I am, it's encouraging to me. I mean, I know I'm at the bottom of the heap. Holy moly, look at that. I mean, good.
Well, I found it really useful, and it's encouraging, and it's like a kick in the butt sometimes when you do. I keep that thing over on the left side, and it's just a small window, and it just shows our team, and between Ron and Mason and me and who else was I looking at? Jim. We were all pretty close there, especially early on. And Mason made some, reference to it about how he was spurred on by trying to keep up with Jim and me.
I make it a point after a lot of the contests when I've had the same station that we fought back and forth the whole time. Like I believe in the WPX there was K7 BTW Build the Wall out in Washington State that I emailed after the contest. It said, man, it was great going back and forth with you. And he's like, man, we sat there watching that thing the whole time, and I bet your call sign was said as many times here as anybody said on the air. So there's a lot of people using it.
And as Ron pointed out, now here's something that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. Now understand, this is only the people who are using this particular real-time scoreboard. But if y'all know anything about the Society of Midwest Contesters, they are a bad news bears bunch of folks. I mean, great operators. Like there's Craig, K9CT, and I'll bet you that Valerie is in here. Normally
I don't think she does CW, does she?
No, I don't think they were in it, but they will be this weekend.
What's that called? WV9L or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be in the voice.
Yeah. And look, there'll be KC9EE. Anyway, then you come on down and look at who number 2 is. A bunch of rednecks. Look, I'm telling you what, and understanding that we didn't have the scores for Tor and Gary in here. That may have been all 2, 4, 6.
That's 13 right there. So
well,
if you had Gary and Tor listed there, we might have scared those folks ahead of us.
Well,
it's kind of fun that we surprised them afterwards because they didn't know that those two were operating, I guess. They saw the scores show up.
Yeah. Well,
Larry, go to the main page. Go back again, get out of the club competition.
Well, shoot.
If you had a Windows computer, that'd be a lot easier.
Go to click on view. See the chase the rabbit?
Yeah.
If you click on that, go ahead and do it. And then hit save. That shows just the ones above and below you.
Oh man!
And you can
cool.
you can shrink that down to a window that you can just put anywhere on the screen, like with N1 mic open, and just see the score, the 5 above and 5 below you.
Yeah. Well, that fella 5 above you, Larry, he's kicking your butt.
Yeah, that gives me heartburn just to look at that.
A nice list of molt. Yeah, 141 molt. That's good.
Well, y'all got to get that molt counts up.
Well, when you're in an NAQP without spotting, malts is just going to be, it is what it is.
Whatever it comes along, yeah.
Whatever comes along, right?
Unless there's some trick you guys know about.
Well, that's true. So then the thing is that you can't see. Not only can you not use by the rules, you not only cannot use skimmers spotting networks, etc. You cannot arrange contacts like get on 2 meters and tell somebody to get on, or send somebody an email or a text.
Okay, so when you work a QSO with somebody, how do you ask them to move?
No. Okay, I'll tell you.
What do you say?
Like what Gary said, this is what happened to me. So I heard Tor Clay on maybe 80 meters, and I had not worked Mississippi. So I heard him and I called him, and he asked me QSY 21056 or something like that. And I just sent Roger GG, which is going. And so that means I go up there. Since he's SO2R, he takes one radio and he tunes up there and is calling CQ, knowing that at that time of night, nobody is going to answer him. And that lets me find him, and I send my call, and we work it as though it were 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's just a standard QSO, and then he goes back to what he's doing. It's not uncommon for George, K5KG, to try to move me. And somebody, K0RF, sent me a move. And that's legal when you do it like that. And it's not only legal, but it's encouraged.
A lot of asked me that, I probably wouldn't understand.
You can set up macros in N1 Mike that all you have to do is hit the whatever F key you assign it to, and it'll put QRX and whatever frequency your second radio's on. So just with hitting one button, you could you could tell somebody that you're also on that other band and frequency.
That'll be a little workshop we'll have to do about that. I haven't discovered that.
A lot of capability in there, that's for sure. I
use it on RIDI SO2R, where I can just hit that button and it says QRX to 21255. And if they come there, great. If not, it was just the time to send the macro.
Wow. Well, okay, we'll come back to this. I want to ask Gary something. What contesting software do you use, Gary?
N1MM. Okay. I'm cheap.
Well, no, you're smart.
It works great.
You're smart. All of us, I guess, use N1MM. It's so. All right, what were you asking a while ago there, Mr. McVeigh?
Oh, I was going to tell you to look at that highest rate at the top of your screen there. That's a fellow club member.
You're exactly right. And when we go back over here, he was on top of the heap, but he's not on our team.
No, not for the NAQP, but he's in Deep Dixie. He's a Deep Dixie club member.
Yes, truth.
You talking about K5RM?
Yeah, Don.
We missed him.
Yeah, we did. He's operated with us a time or two, but he does some multi-opping with, I can't remember who else it is, a big dog over there.
Look how many Qs he had. Good Lord.
2,169. Oh, my mercy.
He must have been at K5TR.
You know, I can't remember what the station is, but I know the guy whose station he multi-ops sometimes, and he very well could have been multi-opping this time too. But that guy has built his own monobanders, and he's got pictures all over the web of the process through which he built all those things. And
you know something? There's something wrong with that, or that's not right. I'm looking at.
They had 5 operators.
That's right. That's the operator.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
That's it. That's 210 an hour, guys.
Not only is that multi-operator, you can use 2 transmitters. It's multi-2.
Oh yeah.
It's not multi-single. It's multi-2.
And actually, I haven't done a multi-2, but I know that NQ4I went from multi-multi to multi-2, and they might have 4 operators going with only 2 of them really working, but they've got 2 other people who are listening. they're not transmitting, but they're listening and directing. Like if there's one station on 20 meters and one station on 40 meters, it's my understanding that they'll have one guy running 40, and then there's another person it's like listening from mulch.
They're working the mulch. They're not just listening.
Yeah, I can't
Just
remember how that does.
what we do here is the in-band station, when the run station's got good rate, we'll put it into buddy mode. So the in-band mulch station is listening and stacking call signs. So I'm typing call signs over here on this station, and they're stacking up above the call sign entry box in N1 Mike. So instead of saying QRZ, you're saying now N4EE.
Yes.
And cutting out that. Once the rate slows down, then we've got bells.
Yeah.
And when I ring that bell, I'm fixing to work a multiplier. So the run station backs off, and with the plex being full duplex, they can still listen while I'm transmitting. So I throw my call sign out. I call the mult. If he comes right back to me, great. I give it back to the run station. If he's not coming back to me, then I just give it back to the run station. But the in-bands are actually working the multipliers that they find. They're not just spotting them.
I do know this. 2 times I went and operated multi at NQ4I in Georgia. I surely want to take Gary and Van Winkle over there, because first time I went over there, I wondered what in the world am I doing sitting in this room with these jet pilots. And I just ran the mulch station for 20 meters. But actually what I would do, we had hand signals we'd use with one another, because he had to have lockouts. You couldn't transmit but one time, so you had to have lockouts. Or I'd tap my key, and mine would make his receiver go dead. His receiver go dead. So he couldn't hear a dang thing. But it's sitting there in that room with 13 operating stations. Golly mercy.
That's the beauty of a plex, where you've got, with the multiplex, you can run 2 stations, but you've only got 1 transmitter, so there's no need for lockouts or anything else.
Yeah.
It deleted 90% of the mess of wires and does it all just within the radio.
That's right.
I've got a question, a newbie question. So when you're running, it seems like, at least my observation is that there are people that just come along in big groups, and then after a while it just kind of dries up for a while. So how long do you just sit there and call CQ without hearing anybody before you start moving on to something else? How do you approach that?
Do you get tired of doing it? No,
if you're SO2R. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You don't really know. But after about 3 or 4 minutes, if pretty great going and I've dried up and I had anything answer in 3 or 4 minutes, but another radio going anyway. So I'm looking on another band. So that usually doesn't happen, but it will. Here we go. See, what happened to me during the NAQP, and I think this was a big mistake. I only had 355 contacts on 20 meters, and what happened was I had a really good run going. I was holding my frequency really good, no problem. But I went to the second radio to work a multiplier, I think on 15 or something, and it probably took me a couple of calls to work that guy. And when I come back to 20, my frequency was taken, so I had to try to find another frequency. Well, I finally did, but I just never really could get the run established again. So I think, and I got aggravated, so I just left 20 meters and went to 40. I think that was a big mistake.
Yeah. Hey, Jim. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron. You were going to comment on something.
Gary basically said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said it changes if you're SO2R on how quickly you're going to abandon a run station, because even if it's only bringing in every couple of minutes, if you're on another band with the SO2R, you can be over there working a whole bunch of search and pounce while that station's channel's still calling CQ. So you're going to stay there a lot longer in an SO2R situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jim, in the CWTs, you're only there for an hour. This more, I've made a mistake several times moving. When I would call CQ, and after about a minute or two, or at the most, maybe 5 or 6 times, I would call, and then I would move either to a different band, or I would move further up or further down. And in my estimation, I think that was a mistake every single time I did that, because I lost my frequency for one thing, and I lost my mojo, more to speak. This morning.
Right.
This morning, I just stayed where I was. I was on 40 meters the whole hour, and I had a good spot. I was 20, I think it's 28.5 is where I was, so I had a really good spot that I had picked up, and somebody ran me off of 31.6 or something like that. So I went down to 28.5, and but I just stayed there. And even when I was sitting there calling for a minute or two, I figured that sooner or later people are going to get back around me, because I know they're searching around. The search and pouncers are going back and forth between 20 and 40. So I just stayed there. And even though I called, for a minute or two without any success, all of a sudden I'd get 3 at a time. And I'd be back on working a pile up for about 10 minutes. And so I just stayed there until I ran out completely about 750 or 150. And then I started searching pouncing just to catch up the ones that.
I think a lot of times you get spotted, because in CWTs you can use spotting. There's nothing.
That's right.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Except for the DX police who send you a nasty email and say, "Do you not know this is a DX cluster? Why you keep spotting these U.S. stations?"
No.
You mentioned I had a couple of times where I was running, and then somebody just kind of shows up and starts calling CQ on top of you. And I don't know if it's because the band was just opening up and I didn't know that person was there, or they just showed up. So what do you do? I mean, do you have a competition, or you just move on to the next?
I have a confession to make. Last week at 0300, that happened to me, and it made me so mad, I held down my dits until he left.
I was wondering who was doing
that.
that.
You know what? If a guy is really serious, if he's really after making a big score on, CWT, for instance, where it's so short, he'll leave. He'll find another frequency really quick.
Yeah. Most of the time, it's not intentional, and so I have to realize that. But I did kind of lose my cool there for a minute or two. But he did leave, and he gave me my frequency back.
Well, some people just show up and just start operating almost. I mean, I think I try to be polite, and I'll do QRL, a couple of times, and I'll listen. But
don't be bashful. Call CQ or whatever.
There you go. Just keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work. Of course, they put a notch filter right on your frequency, and then they won't even hear you anymore.
I don't do that very often. That was an aberration, and I felt bad about it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you run a sideband and you run across K5 Romeo Tango, do not mess up his frequency. He's so funny. He's a really great guy. Do you know him, Jim?
No.
K5 Red Truck.
I don't think so.
Paul at DFWCG. You remember the Dallas Fort Worth group, aren't you, Jim?
Yep, I am.
And Mac, you are too, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. He is. He's one. He's the one, if you don't recognize him, he resends out the DX news from ARRL every week. When ARRL sends it out, he sends it out to the club. Really nice guy. But I've heard him before when people would get on his frequency, and he's funny. Even when he calls CQ and his rates dropped way down, I've heard him do stuff like, "This is K5 Romeo Tango. If there's anybody on planet Earth who has not talked to somebody in a long time, please talk to me just for a moment. I won't hold you." I mean, he's funny. Anyway, okay, so I have a question now, and this is for the seasoned guru in the room. and the other 3 as well. So here's what happened to me when I had a run going in the NAQP and was doing pretty good. There was some lid, I can't remember where he was. He was going about 20 words a minute, and he must have been using a straight key because anyway, he wasn't too great an operator. So he worked me. Then he would call me again, and then and this went on for a while. Then let me just say K7SS would call me, and I would make an exchange. When I would do that, he would call K7SS. Of course, K7SS was gone. He was still twisting dials. So MP2X might call me. All right. Then immediately this lid would call NP2X. So when that happens, you guys who are seasoned operators, I want to see if you did what I did. What would you do if that fella does it and it goes on for 15 minutes?
Move.
Just keep on going about my business. You know, when somebody comes on my frequency trying and starts acting crazy, I just keep on working through him, because usually there's nobody that's going to be strong enough that I can't hear somebody else around me one way or another.
What about you, Ron? What you do? Uh-oh.
You're muted.
Muted.
I dropped my CQ repeat time down to about 2 seconds and just let it roll.
Oh, goodness.
I keep my finger on the escape key so I can shut it off if another signal comes in, but I just drop it to about 2 seconds and let it roll. I never acknowledge that he's there and just go with it.
Yeah.
Contrary to what I claimed that I did last week, when that's happened to me in the past, I just move.
Yeah. Well, now, Jim, what about you? Because you did a fair amount of running.
I tried to stay where I was as much as possible, because it wasn't always easy to find a place. I mean, it was pretty crowded. And then I kind of wonder, is there any good place to run up and down the band? Does it make much of a difference?
Yes, there's a good place to run, and that is where there's nobody else running.
Yeah, the clear frequency. I tell you what, my favorite.
It doesn't matter as long as it's clear.
My favorite frequency for CWT, and I try to go to it when everybody's trying to warm up and fist fight to find the frequency. I like 32.
That's me too. Right around between 31 and 34. I like that spot. I don't like to go down below 30 because that's where the big boys run.
That's where N5ZO is. People like N5ZO, K3WW, AA3B, even though Bud he's usually above 30. But then you have the K0RF. I wish he would speed up.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up another question. Does it matter what speed you are when you're running? Does the faster speed attract more people?
No, ask N3RS.
What's that, Larry?
I said, just ask N3RS or K0RF or who was it? Al? I mean, who's the other guy? Somebody else.
N3RD is pretty fast. N3RD is pretty fast too.
Yeah, they run about.
ZZ sits here at 38 and 40 the whole time.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy this afternoon at 40, and he came on. I was CQing and he came on, and he was running 38, and I just hit the pace up button about 4 times and ran and worked him, and then went right back down to calling CQ at 30. But most times, Jim, you'll get more action at 28 or 30 than you will at 32 or 34.
Okay.
And especially depending on where you are. Now, decision I would make is if I want to make some QSOs, especially as it's getting on, I would move on up about above 35 and then slow my speed down way down to like 28 or something like that.
Way down. That's one click for me.
I had so much fun. One time I just decided what I would do. One in NAQP, I don't remember which session it was, and I operated 40 and 42 just to see if anybody would make me slow down. Never. I went from one end, just searching fast from one end of the band to the other, and it was bang. There was no questions, and everybody who was calling, who was running, who answered my call could handle that. So I guess the call history file helps a lot too, because once they get your call, they don't care what else you said.
Sorry.
I got the question, Mark.
URL. Hey, anybody know anybody that's got any, say, 1 1/4 or 1 5/8 heliacs about 300 feet?
I don't.
I don't.
No.
Let me look in my garage. See,
What are you working on, Gary?
I'll run a new feed line out to that tall tower. I've got 7/8 going out there right now, and it's probably seen it's on its last legs. I really need to replace it with something.
I figured you'd be running fiber optic cable out there.
I tell you what, I've been thinking about running 450 ohm out there with power transformers.
Ooh, have fun.
Well,
Well,
no loss.
This has been insightful for me, and I think it would be fun, maybe with a little tighter agenda sometime, to get some more of our club members on to like to talk about it. It helped me. Thanks, Jim, for asking the question. To hear Gary describe his towers, and I'd like to hear Ron describe your towers, and I'd like to hear you describe your radios, and kind of give us a little. Well, in the woodworking world, we call it shop tour.